is bigger than that. Quantum computers is a hardware question where it actually increases your ability to do much more than with an ordinary digital computer. So the two of them, the chatbots that are a revolution in software, and then quantum computers, which are a revolution in hardware, when they get together, watch out.
Microsoft just dropped a bombshell, shutting down one of its most advanced quantum labs in Sydney, Australia. This isn't some routine corporate shakeup. It's a game-changing move in the global quantum arms race, and barely anyone is talking about it. The silence around it might be louder than Microsoft's polished press releases. This Sydney team wasn't tinkering with just any tech. They cracked the code on controlling millions of qubits, something that could rewrite the future of computing forever. They built chips that function at temperatures near absolute zero, pushing the boundaries of physics itself. And then, boom, the project gets yanked to the US. Was this about loyalty to the company, or a chance for these scientists to walk away and launch their own empire? Microsoft insists this is just consolidation as they shift from research to real-world products, but the timing is way too suspicious. The shutdown happened right as DARPA announced its final phase for utility-scale quantum computing. Only 2 companies made the cut, and Microsoft was one of them. Suddenly, every ounce of brainpower had to be pulled back to American soil.
But Mother Nature would laugh at us because Mother Nature does not use zeros and ones, zeros and ones. Mother Nature computes on electrons, electron waves, waves that create molecules.
And here's where it gets even wilder. U.S. export control laws now classify quantum computing as a critical technology. That means having breakthrough experiments overseas instantly became a national security risk. Overnight, Sydney turned from an asset into a liability. So Microsoft executives flew in, laid it out straight. The 15-person team had 2 choices: pack up and relocate to Redmond, Washington, or lose their jobs. What would you do if years of your life's work got locked away under government secrecy overnight? The offers Microsoft threw on the table were insane. Salaries so huge, you could buy a house in Sydney outright after just a few years. But here's the shocking twist. This lab wasn't even focused on building qubits like Microsoft's other teams. No, they were tackling the real bottleneck in quantum computing: how to control millions of qubits without miles of spaghetti wiring or impossible cooling systems. Their secret weapon? A revolutionary cryogenic chip that could flip the entire industry upside down. This breakthrough could eliminate the single biggest roadblock to practical quantum machines. And guess what? Microsoft isn't shouting about it, they're burying it deep while they stay 5 steps ahead. What exactly were these Sydney scientists developing that made the company so desperate to lock it down? A cryogenic CMOS controller chip, technology so wild it can sit inside the dilution refrigerator, right next to the qubits, at temperatures hovering near absolute zero. If you know quantum science, you already get how insane this is. No more tangled jungles of thousands of wires poking in and out of the freezer. No more heat contamination wrecking fragile quantum states. This was pure direct control of millions of qubits from inside the frozen chamber itself. Insiders say this chip wasn't just an incremental step forward, it was light years ahead of anything IBM, Google, or anyone else had on the table.
What we're really aiming for here is to establish a framework for insight so that there's at least a third-party referee, an independent referee, that can observe what leading AI companies are doing and at least sound the alarm if they have concern.
And the kicker? The 2021 research paper they did release was just the teaser trailer. Behind the scenes, sources claim there were secret, unpublished breakthroughs, tech so commercially explosive that Microsoft locked it up before the public ever knew it existed. Behind closed doors, some Sydney team members admitted the truth. Their work was only 2 years away from commercial-grade rollout. That kind of breakthrough could have completely changed the future of quantum scalability. But here's the kicker. Microsoft owns every patent, every design, every scrap of intellectual property from 7 years of research. What they don't own anymore? The very people who built it. and the only ones who knew how to push it further. Think of it like this. If your crew figured out how to shrink the brain of a quantum computer and drop it right next to its neurons, and then walked out with that knowledge, you wouldn't just lose innovation, you'd lose raw firepower in the global quantum arms race. But this story takes a wild turn, because those researchers Microsoft tried to drag to Redmond? They had other plans. This wasn't just resistance, it was a full-blown rebellion that gave birth to a rival powerhouse, Emergence Quantum. Microsoft's ultimatum was brutal. Move to the US or lose your jobs. The salaries were massive, enough to buy a Sydney home outright after a few years, but in a move that stunned everyone, the entire 15-person team refused. Not one of them took the bait. Instead, they stayed in Australia, ripped off the golden handcuffs, and launched their own startup to continue the work Microsoft wanted locked away. Led by Professor David Riley and Dr. Tom Oakey, the rebels kept their crew of fresh PhDs together and fired up. And here's the most shocking twist. Within a single year of Microsoft shutting the lab down, Emergence Quantum joined forces with another Aussie startup, RAC, and together they delivered a scientific breakthrough that shook the entire quantum world. Then came the mic drop moment. They published in Nature. Their cryogenic control chip, paired with RAC's silicon qubits, didn't just survive at ultra-cold temperatures, it ran flawlessly without degrading quantum performance. This wasn't theory anymore. This was proof. The chip worked with real qubits, cutting out miles of wiring and shrinking the size of quantum computers like never before. It was the tech equivalent of a band getting dropped by their label, only to come back and drop the album of the decade. They didn't just stay in the game, they reinvented it, and from day one they were making money through partnerships with DARPA and other quantum players. But here's where things spiral into a thriller. Was this really Microsoft's loss? Or was it part of a bigger strategy in the high-stakes chess match of quantum supremacy? Some insiders whisper that Emergence Quantum might not be a rebellion at all, but a Trojan horse. What if Microsoft quietly approved or even encouraged their formation? The idea sounds wild until you look at the facts. Remember, Microsoft still holds the patents. All the core IP from those 7 years, the designs, the cryogenic control tech before 2024, it's locked in their vault. So what happens if Emergence builds something that looks a little too close to their old work? Suddenly, you're staring at a legal cage match straight out of Silicon Valley history. Like when Waymo dragged Uber into court for billions over stolen self-driving secrets. And the craziest part? Both Emergence Quantum and Microsoft are now sitting at the same table, working with DARPA. Emergence got pulled into DARPA's quantum benchmarking project, while Microsoft's topological qubit project advanced into DARPA's final phase for utility-scale systems. It's rivals, but also partners, all feeding into the same US government pipeline. Are we watching a rivalry or a carefully staged two-front strategy to dominate quantum once and for all? So here's the million-dollar question. Are we really watching a messy breakup, or is this a secret reunion playing out in plain sight through government deals? Some experts suspect Microsoft might be using Emergence as a shadow research arm, scooping up innovations without the cost of running a Sydney lab. Professor Riley calls Emergence qubit agnostic, focused on the connective tissue that works with any quantum processor. That positioning is brilliant. It keeps them out of direct competition with Microsoft, while also opening the door for Microsoft to quietly license back the very tech they once buried. Imagine that. The lab they shut down in Sydney becoming the backbone of global quantum control systems, with Microsoft still pulling strings behind the curtain. And the timing couldn't be more explosive, because the stakes in the global quantum arms race are sky high. Microsoft is doubling down on their secret weapon, the Azure Quantum Elements chip, better known as ANA-1. It's built on topological qubits, a radically different approach than what IBM, Google, and the rest of the field are chasing. If they succeed, these topological qubits won't just be stable. They'll be practically error-proof, making it possible to scale to 1,000,000 qubits in a device no bigger than your hand. That's not just a leap, it's a quantum revolution. But here's where things get even scarier. This isn't just about bragging rights in tech. The US government is pumping billions into post-quantum infrastructure under the National Quantum Initiative. Why? Because once a true quantum computer comes online, it could break today's encryption standards like glass, putting everything at risk, from banking systems to military communications. And when you add quantum AI into the mix, the implications turn almost unimaginable. Whoever controls this tech won't just dominate computing, they'll control the future itself. These machines aren't just for crunching chemistry problems. Topological quantum computers could, in theory, train massive language models thousands of times faster than today's most powerful GPUs. Some researchers warn the very first use case won't be science at all. It could be quantum-enhanced AI, cracking codes no supercomputer can touch, or powering defense systems straight out of a science fiction movie. No wonder the Pentagon is desperate to accelerate development. And here's the nightmare scenario. If Microsoft nails its topological qubit approach and locks down cryogenic interface tech, either through its patent portfolio or quiet deals with emergents, they could leapfrog every competitor overnight. Think about it. IBM and Google have sunk billions into superconducting hardware, but one Microsoft breakthrough could make it all look like vacuum tubes the year transistors were born. If Redmond gets this right, we're not just talking faster computers. We're talking about rewriting the infrastructure of intelligence itself. From encryption to AI training, the company that wins this controls the future of computing. But while the world stares at Redmond, the real wildcard may be coming from Sydney. That rebel team is still building the missing piece everyone will need to scale quantum systems. The irony? Australia may have just thrown away its most powerful weapon in the global tech race. When Microsoft pulled the plug, Australia didn't just lose a lab. They lost their crown jewel of quantum R&D. Even worse, government officials weren't even told directly. They found out from the press. The timing was humiliating. Just as Australia poured hundreds of millions into its domestic quantum sector, one of its most advanced teams was snapped away in a corporate power play. What should have been Australia's breakthrough moment turned into its most embarrassing misstep. The timing could not have been worse. Australia had just unveiled its first national quantum strategy, vowing to make the country a global leader. The irony is brutal. While the government dropped nearly $1 billion Australian dollars to lure S Quantum, an American company with Aussie roots, into Brisbane, they completely overlooked their own homegrown rebels. Emergence Quantum, born out of Australian universities, could have been the crown jewel of their strategy. Instead, the team is now a free agent, able to cut deals with American defense agencies, European labs, or even Chinese investors if they decide to go that route. Nothing ties them down. That means Australia may have just exported the control layer of post-classical computing, a piece of technology so critical it could decide who leads the next generation of global infrastructure. The very interfaces that make quantum machines practical might now be sold to the highest bidder. If your country just watched its brightest quantum minds walk straight into the arms of foreign governments and corporations, do you feel secure or completely sidelined in the most important tech race of our lifetime? And here's the final twist. Microsoft never actually left the game. They just went dark. Since pulling the plug in Sydney, Microsoft's quantum program has slipped behind a wall of secrecy. No media tours, no lab access, only carefully scripted announcements. Their February 2025 reveal of the Ana-1 quantum chip was supposed to be groundbreaking. But instead, it was met with cold skepticism from the scientific community. Too many bold claims, too few details. Was it a real breakthrough, or just smoke and mirrors to hide how far they've actually fallen behind? Microsoft bragged about creating the world's first quantum processor with a topological core and 8 functional qubits. But when physicists at the American Physical Society saw the data, they called it unconvincing, like a Rorschach test. Too noisy, too vague, nothing close to proof. Yet Microsoft marches on, quietly promising a full-stack prototype by 2027 that could, in theory, scale to millions of qubits in a device small enough to sit on your desk. So what's the play here? While IBM and Google show off flashy 100-qubit demos, Microsoft might be playing the tortoise strategy, building something so radically different it could wipe out all competitors overnight. Their silence only fuels speculation. Because if you were sitting on a nuclear-level breakthrough in computing, would you brag or stay quiet until the world was forced to notice? At the heart of this story is control. Microsoft still holds the patents from 7 years of groundbreaking work, even as emergence quantum rises outside its walls. The knowledge survived, but now it fuels a new power player already teaming up with Microsoft's rivals. The big question: will we see collaboration, lawsuits, or a split into rival quantum ecosystems that refuse to work together? The answer could decide whether quantum computers hit the real world in the next 5 years or stay locked in labs for decades. The Sydney lab may be gone, but its technology is alive, evolving, and maybe accelerating faster now that it's free from corporate chains. This isn't just about faster machines. It's about rewriting global power, reshaping AI, and securing, or exposing, our most sensitive secrets. The stakes couldn't be higher. If you want to follow this race as it unfolds, make sure to subscribe, like, share, and drop a comment. This story is just getting started.